I'm gonna say something kind of wild, but it's because I saw it somewhere. But I don't know if we might have to cut it out. But anyways, someone said that the reason why some girls' vagina is tighter than others is because... Used. Huh? No. It has nothing to do with that. They said that it's because, like, ethnicity-wise, like black men have, are known to have larger dicks. So therefore, the women have
makes sense.
Bigger holes.
Oh, and then that doesn't make
sense. I want to take this moment to sincerely apologize for a topic that I brought up. It wasn't my view or opinion, but I understand that even bringing it up was super inappropriate and harmful. And I've heard so many of you guys, especially in the black community and among black women, and like, I'm just sorry for perpetuating a harmful stereotype, and moving forward, I will no longer bring up any topics that could be harmful to anybody. I mean, we're all Asian, and we've dealt with, like, pretty hateful, like, stereotypes as well, and I should have known better because I've been hurt by those too, So I truly, truly apologize for that. And it wasn't my intention to hurt anyone, but I understand that intentions don't matter when the impact was so hurtful, and I'm learning and I'm growing from this, and yeah, I don't know what to say other than that. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point here, is that obviously, like she said, we're all human. We are all human. Like, everyone makes mistakes. I can't take back any of the things I've said. None of us can. But what we can do is try to make the changes going forward. If you want to hate us regardless, that's your freedom to do so. But I think that the people who support us have been waiting for us to own up and take accountability for maybe some of the things that have hurt them as well. And that's what we're going to do our best to do.
All right. Hey there. Good to see you. Marvin, once again, your loyal friend. You just saw a video there. This video was trending about a week ago, or maybe a little bit more. Damage control is what you just saw there. She released a statement and you heard it. I don't want to repeat those words. I'm sure most of you by now have caught wind of this story. But in case you've not, we'll give you a little bit more detail. But anyway, this influencer in Asia basically wanted to insult black women. All right? And I say black because they call us black. All right? So, but we're not black. Nobody's black, nobody's white. I've said that before. So really, she wanted to insult black women for whatever reason. Now, people have debated whether she just genuinely made a mistake or misspoke, or maybe the example was misplaced or things like that. But when you look at how she came out, in my view, I think she really just wanted to say something bad about so-called black women. I really think that it's something that she believes in firmly. So, was the apology genuine? A number of people have said it doesn't look genuine. I'll play you a few clips. There's one guy who thinks that she was being genuine from the tone of her voice and things like that. I think that apology for me came more out of embarrassment after reactions from the general public telling her how this had affected different people. Because for one thing, she ended up undressing her own men of her own community, Asian men. Because in saying what she said about black people, she was literally giving props to black people. She was literally saying that black people are competent, or are the most competent people on earth with regards to sexuality. That's essentially what she was saying. All right, and then we'll get into details in terms of her claims about the fact that black women are not tight enough, which is rubbish. There's no proof to that. She doesn't understand sexuality at all. So in the things that she said, she expressed a lot of ignorance on many fronts. All right, sexuality is a very, very complex thing. It's a complex issue. Reproduction and sexuality, they're complex. There's not one way to describe what happens or the physiological makeup of a woman or a man. There isn't one way to describe those things. People are so different. Even within the so-called races, people are extremely different. So again, she expressed a lot of ignorance on that front. But at the end of the day, I looked at her and I was asking myself, at that age, she looks like she's about 22, 25, maybe at the most 30. But she's a very, very, very young woman. Where has she seen all these men, to be able to confirm that black men are this, according to what she claims? Where has she seen all these black men? And bear in mind, and also where has she seen all these Asian men, to be able to make that comparison and conclusively decide that black men are that, according to her claim? Yeah, but fast forward. I spoke to a few Asian men who confirmed that they were really upset. And the reason they were upset with those kinds of comments is really she was belittling them. She was belittling them. That's not what she meant. She really wanted to say, like I said from the beginning, she wanted to put black women in a bad place. All right? But she ended up producing the opposite effect. And a number of Asian men that I personally have spoken to, I have a lot of Asian friends, Indians, Chinese, I've got friends of different races. There was even one Latino guy who felt that, they were included as Latinos. Because I mean, the thing is, indirectly, like I said, she gave props to black men, intending to put down black people, but she ended up giving props, inadvertently giving props to black men. And this is what happens with racism. You end up shooting yourself in the foot. But all these men have felt insulted. And I wouldn't be surprised to find that there were comments on social media, to the effect that they felt that she was belittling them and looking down on their prowess. So, but again, this is a classic example of how racism hurts all of us. And so I think that all of us need to take this as an opportunity to understand why this racism has to come to an end. Why this discrimination and stereotyping of people that we don't believe are better than us or we believe are less than us needs to stop. It would be nice if in future we could see this young lady, her name is Esther apparently, would come out differently and really just start to hit back against the fact that we're different racially. There are no different races in the world. There's only one race. We have different skin tones, just like we have different heights, all right? We have different sizes, body sizes. We have different facial makeups, but there is just one race, all right? So in the coming clips, you're going to see how some people, especially Asian women, I saw a lot of reactions from Asian women. There's one that you're going to see that was even insulting Esther, because they felt that she's misrepresenting Asians. And you're going to see in her own words, she says that the comments of Esther wiped out a lot of hard works. She actually said 50 years. She says that Esther, in her words, in her careless words, wiped out 50 years of hard work that Asians have put into efforts to bring racial reconciliations, especially with black people. Because we've seen these divisions, ripening time and again. Especially in societies such as America and perhaps maybe in Asia and Europe. You don't see these things in Africa. There's a lot of maturity in Africa, and I've said that before. And this is why my hearts go off to so-called black people. That, they don't take any moment to speak down on whether it's Asians or Latinos. But we see these things happening in Latino communities, speaking against black people, or Asians, again, attacking black people, such as in this case. But particularly the so-called white people, that's where it happens more often than anywhere else. And so I hope that this is going to be a learning moment for Esther to come out differently and become an advocate against racism, become an advocate against the idea that we are different races. This is a grand opportunity. But in the meantime, we have to give you our own take. We have to tell you how we feel. And all those who are like-minded, who think like Esther. On that clip, you saw that young man sitting alongside Esther saying that if you don't forgive us, then that's okay. So again, that tells you that apology was not genuine. One of the things that you hear commonly or you see common on social media is the fact that a number of people are refusing to take that apology, are refusing to accept that apology. You can understand such sentiments because the thing is that, first of all, attacking, it's hard to even say, right? But attacking the sexuality of black women, that's just beyond gross. It's just beyond me. It's beyond description. I mean, why would you go there? I mean, it almost sounds as if she had to look for the greatest insult that she could find. And I don't think that this is something that Esther can walk back. She can't. She has done so much damage, not just to the black community. She apologized and she singled out black community, but also I like the fact that she made an admission that she's a victim of racial profiling or racial stereotyping. And obviously maybe she's experienced this, or maybe members of her community have experienced this from white people, or even from other different races, perhaps. But it's amazing that she didn't think about that before she came and said these things that she said on social media and just let it out. It's unfortunate that she didn't think about that before. And also it's interesting, if she really knew that she had had these experiences, or members of her community have had this kind of experience, how did she not remember that when she was saying this about black people? How did she fail in that moment to remember that? So again, the apology doesn't really sound genuine. Because to have to be reminded by other people that, look, what you said, remember that you've also gone through this stereotyping or discrimination. And then she said, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, I have gone through those things. I mean, it should be straightforward. It should be natural that when you're about to say something, you really remember, you think about your own experiences. But it wasn't natural in that case. So again, that takes away from this being a genuine apology. It's even possible that she's not really been discriminated against as much, so she doesn't know how it feels. Because if she really knew how it felt, I don't think she'd have gone that far with regards to giving comments about black women's sexuality in that manner. That was just horrible. And it reflects so poorly on the Asian community and those who seem to agree with her, such as the guy beside her saying, well, we've given the apology, but if you don't forgive us, we can understand. You can't come out like that. You can't come out that. But also, those of you that have been hurt by this, whether you're Asian, whether you're Latino, whether you're white, because for me, this insult, by accidentally giving props to black men, it was an attack on white men, it was an attack on Latino men, Indian men, Asian men. It was an attack on all other men that are non-black. This is why it's gross on so many levels. And again, it should just come to remind us that it's time to walk away from this thing of racism. And one way to stop racism, I've said before, is not going to come by making simple comments here and there. And it's a good thing we're having these conversations, by the way, because these are the kinds of conversations that will lead to healing and racial reconciliation. All right? But the important thing to remember is that it's time to put this race thing behind us. And the only way to end racism is to stop calling people black, white, or olive, what's the other word? Brown. Particularly these three: white, black, brown. It's time to stop using those terminologies. Again, even in the clips that I'll show you, where there was different reactions from Asian women and different people of different races, you hear constantly again people saying black. And like there's one woman who is very, very genuine. You're going to hear her. She really apologizes to the black community. But again, I'm uncomfortable with you continuing to call people black and brown and white, because those things, those references, perpetuate racism. And so guys, we need to learn that the way out of this racial mess is to stop using these terminologies. Stop calling people black, yellow, green, brown, white. Nobody is those things. And we need to stop that. But also, I want to give another reason why her words, her expression of, what black people are, what black women are, why that is so misplaced and came from a place of deep ignorance. All right? First of all, I've said before that sexuality is a complex thing. But the other reason is that it's not just black women who date or marry black men. White women do. Asian women do. Latino women do. Indians do. I have Indian friends that are married to black people. I have a friend in Zambia who is married to a Chinese woman. So, literally, besides insulting all men, Esther also insulted all women. Because the way she described women, that they are this because they go with black men. You are saying, literally saying that about all women that have been with black men. There are many Latinos. I mean, Latin America is full of women who are married to black men or who date black men. And some of those women even tell you, I only date black men. So literally you were insulting Latino women, Asian women, you were insulting all women. And I don't know if this came to her in the moment that she was making this apology. And so, to just give a little bit more education, when you talk about the sexual makeup or whatever it is that you want to call it about women, first of all, you have to think of the fact that bestiality is a part of this issue that we're discussing here. We know Europe has had issues of bestiality for decades, if not centuries. It's only as recent as 2015 when, is it Denmark, that banned sex with dogs because it was legal before. Now, when you think of it, what is worse? Sex with a black person or sex with a dog? And I've made a video here. You can go back and look at my videos. You'll find a video that I did talking about bestiality and how it affects the physiological makeup of a woman. And even the use of dildos. And when you do your own research and you find out, dildos are most commonly used in places like Asia, Europe. The last place you find the use of dildos or even bestiality being common is Africa, among black people. So, you need to factor in that fact. In places like Mexico, Latin America, there's heavy rumors, and you find these rumors even on social media. I beg your pardon, on the internet. There's one thing that I keep hearing constantly, one rumor about a thing called the donkey show, which apparently is very common in Mexico. And I've spoken to Mexican women personally, one of which is a workmate, a Mexican woman. And all of these people have confirmed that the donkey show is a common thing in Mexico. Some place, is it a province called Tijuana or something like that? I forget exactly how it's pronounced. But this thing has been it's a big, big problem in Mexico. Now, all of those things affect a woman's physiological makeup. So you can't, if anything, the last people that you would think are the way that you describe them, the last women in the world would be would be black women. Because, again, do your own research. When it comes to bestiality and sexual perversion, the last people you expect to go there are black women. And that's just a fact. From a cultural point of view and from a moral point of view. When you talk about, again I said this, when you talk about the use of dildos, where dildos sell the most, Africa is the last place you'd expect dildos to sell. They sell more in Asia, Latin America, and Europe. So, again, this is just to give you a little bit of education. Now, what I just said here is not to say that Latino women are worse than African men or black women. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to say that when you consider these issues of sexuality, there's a lot that you have to take into consideration. A lot. So, I just had to wrap that in. Because this thing of disparaging black people and black women in this particular case has to stop, because it's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. And let me end by this. Despite all of these things, rumors we hear about the donkey show, this donkey thing, we hear about it even in Colombia and many other places that are non-black. All right? Despite that, you won't hear black women or black people disparaging or speaking down on Latino women or Asian women or European women, despite these facts. And that's why I've said before, I find in my experience so far that black people, the people you call black, they are the most civilized. And this that came out of Esther is uncivilized behavior. And this uncivilized behavior must stop.
I feel like I've talked enough about Under the Influence podcast, and I feel like the point's already been driven home, but as an Asian American and seeing so many black voices come forward about how damaging Esther's comments were, I can't just be like, yeah, well, everyone's got the point already. I think it's important. I want to stress to the black community that this is not the view and opinion of all Asian Americans. I'm sure you guys know that, but I really want to stress that. And the reason why a lot of us don't agree with that or support that, besides the fact that it's blatantly harmful and racist and disgusting, is the fact that a lot of us do know what it's like to have disgusting things said about our lady parts. Which I think that's why it's so shocking to me that an Asian woman would even say something like that. Because as an Asian woman, we get comments, disgusting comments all the time about how our vajayjays are sideways or that they're tight because we're Asian. I can't even begin to count all the different times I've heard a weird variation about my vajayjay. I've had that yelled at me in the street before. I've had all kinds of disparaging, disgusting things about my anatomy told to me, which is why it's so baffling and disgusting that Esther would participate in saying something like that about other POC. And I just don't understand how black women even came up in this conversation at all. I also hate when somebody of our culture who is just loud, even though they're a loud minority, says something like that and continues to divide our cultures and set back all the work that literally other Asian Americans have put forth to end any kind of racial tension between us and all the work that we put towards allyship. So it's so incredibly frustrating because not only are you loud and wrong, you are also harming other POC while fully knowing how that kind of rhetoric hurts people because it's said to us all the time. And then you set us back 50 years and then continue to make our relationships worse with other communities.
This apology in that Under the Influence podcast, do you believe her or not? Personally, to me, she does sound very genuine. Even her tone of voice, possibly. And then she did relate it back to her experience as an Asian person, parallels that Asian people have with other people of color. I guess it really only matters to those that she offended. So if the people that she offended accept her apology, then there you have it. My thing is, if they are producing their own show, that means they have control over what content they are recording and then what content to push out. I feel like they set her up. Not only did they set her up, I feel like they were trying to get a viral moment out of this and they got exactly that. But is it worth it for them? You know what I'm saying? I mean, cancel culture is still a real thing. I do see people that should have been canceled and are still going strong. So maybe viral is viral.
Something just doesn't sit right with me with that Under the Influence apology that just came out. I've said this before and I'll say it again, which is that we're coming into this time period where there is a lot more Asian representation, especially way more than there was when I was growing up in my teenage years, in my 20s. But that being said, we don't have to support every Asian. That not all Asian representation is good, and not all people should be representing us. And this podcast is one of them. They've essentially showed us who they are with this podcast. And while I do believe that people can change for the better and apologize and move forward, I didn't feel anything from that apology. I think this is a really important time for all of us to reflect as there are more Asian Americans coming out on different platforms and doing different things, that we have the ability to choose who we want to support and give our time and energy to. And not everyone deserves to have the support. I don't know if anyone else picked up on this, but what they said was they're no longer going to be talking about those topics on their platform because there's more eyes on them. They have a wider platform now. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be saying these things behind closed doors. That doesn't mean that they don't still believe in these things when they're talking amongst each other or their friends or whoever is in their circle. Which I think is like the biggest problem here, is that they still will have those conversations and they don't see that it's wrong. Like, they said this part so loudly, that they talk about topics that they think are entertaining and funny. And the things that they find entertaining, funny are sexist and racist. Like, that's crazy to me. And I know that they wrote their own apology because that wasn't good. There's a lot of good that comes out of digital culture and all that has been happening in the last 4 years. But not everyone deserves to have a platform. Not everyone needs to open up their mouth to the world.